Hey guys, and welcome to a special episode of How Did I Shoot This One? Now, in most of these episodes, you will see me shooting in the studio and explaining what we did during workshops. Today we have something else. Today I want to show you the results of a photo shoot we did with Claudia in tulips. I'm just going to show you one image, and this is my favorite image. No, it's not my favorite image. I actually like, you know what, I'm just going to select one now. There we go. So, you now saw my favorite image. But let's just start the video and I will explain to you why I couldn't choose my favorite image. Now, let me start this video by doing a big disclaimer. Now, I live in an area which I describe as even better than the Keukenhof in the Netherlands. That's not 100% true. For our foreign viewers, let me explain to you what the Keukenhof is, if you don't know. The Keukenhof is a very nice, huge garden in the Netherlands. You have to pay entrance, of course, and they have a lot of tulips, and it's absolutely breathtaking. It's beautiful, but there are a lot of tourists there. Now, I grew up in an area where a lot of those tulips are actually coming from, and when it is tulip season over here, it's beautiful. Everything is colored. We have multicolored rays of tulips. It's amazing. We have a lot of tourists coming over to this area, and that's actually where the problem starts. Over the years, we've seen that when I was younger, you just go into the tulips and you took some pictures with your film camera, of course. And then the smartphones came out and there were a lot of people taking pictures of the tulips. And during COVID, I think it really went wrong. You have to realize that those tulips are not there for the tourists. They're there to make money for the farmer. It's private property. And in the past, they didn't mind people just stopping there. We even have a whole route along the tulips where you can drive with your car. And there are signs like, okay, here you have a tulip field, here you have a tulip field. You can take beautiful drone images. But you have to remember, it's not meant to be for tourists. This is earning money, it's private property. And what happened the last few years is that a lot of people just went into those tulips and literally destroyed the tulips. And the farmer was left with, well, a lot of damage and he couldn't sell the tulips. So what we find out now actually is that a lot of those tulip fields are blocked off. There are big signs, you can't be here, or there's even protection there. So when we wanted to do a photo shoot in the tulips, we of course now we have to call the farmers. Now a few years ago that was pretty easy. You just called up the farmer and you said, hey, can we do a photo shoot? Well, no, let's not do it. But they were very gentle. Nowadays most of the farmers will just throw on the horn and go like, no. Thanks to my parents, we found out that there was a tulip picking garden that was available for photo shoots if you know the owner. So, luckily my mom knows the owner, so within a few days we had arranged that we could do a photo shoot with a model and strobes, because that's the problem. You can take some pictures in those gardens, but doing a whole photo shoot, you need permission for that, so always ask permission. So, we went with our model Claudia to the tulip garden. Now, when you are in an area like this, there are a few things that you have to take into account. The first thing, of course, is lighting. Now, working in the studio, you have everything under control. You can create your own lighting setups, you can create your own angles, you can create your own backdrop. But when you're on a location, everything works differently, right? We have the sun, we have other people, we have maybe stuff in the background that we don't want in the frame. And of course, we want to make sure that we show where we are. Shooting just a model on a beach and telling, yeah, it's Miami, doesn't work for me. Because if it's Miami, I want to see a beach house or I want to see an American flag. I want to make sure that I see Miami, maybe in the backdrop, right? But just a model in sand with water, I can create something like that also in our area where we have a beach. So when you go to the tulips, you want to make sure that you capture all the beauty of those tulips. Now, when we started out, the first thing we did was a photo shoot where we had a big dress and want to make sure that we threw the dress up to make it flow in the wind. Yeah, that's a nice idea if you, in your mind, think that there's no wind there. The moment we arrived there, we even had to hold on our stands with the Nanlites because they were moving around in the wind. It was really windy. So the dress actually floated around by itself. That's a big advantage, but it's also a disadvantage because now you have to really time your shots, because when something is really flowing in the wind, it's much more brutal than when you just throw it around. But in the end, it worked pretty well. Now for the first setup, for me that was the most simple setup. I'm shooting from a slightly higher position than I would normally shoot, for the very simple reason I want to include all those tulips in the back. My model is standing, I'm placing her a little bit to the right side of the frame to make sure that on the left side I have a lot of room to show those tulips. And there was another thing that was really important in this setup, and that's actually in this tulip field, as you can see in the video, they actually have a little tower where you can climb in and look over the tulips. I didn't want that in our shot, and I also didn't want the high power lines in the shot. So when you know that you have something in your shot and you don't want it in there, nowadays with Photoshop it's done pretty easily, right? But it's still important to make sure that you exactly know where your model is in combination with what you want to take out. So if you place your model in front of something and you go like, oh, I'll take that out later in Photoshop, it will never be nice because there's always something sticking out in the hairs or in the hands or in the body. So make sure that you split it very nicely. So in this case, I'm shooting my model and straight in the viewfinder there was this tower. It looks terrible on the original shot, but hey, you can just take the tower out very easily because it's in the open frame. And now when you look at the final shot, it looks great. Another thing, of course, was the angle of light. Now in this case, the angle that we wanted to shoot under, the sun was behind our model. And that meant that we have two choices. One, you can go for a 100% natural look. In that case, flip everything over, make sure that your strobe is in the same angle as the light from the sun, hit your model, and now you have something that looks 100% believable, like there's one light source. It's of course a little bit weird if you do a day to night and you go like, hey, that's weird, but hey, most people will fall for it. In my case, I wanted to do it slightly differently. I don't really believe in the whole theory like there's only one light source in nature, because you also use reflectors or maybe a big wall that reflects back or a car. And I just like the idea of just using artificial light on location. So I decided to flip the set and actually place my main light opposite to the sun and then use one extra strobe under the same angle as the sun. So I'm using actually my sun as an accent light, but because it wasn't strong enough, we use one extra strobe to help the sun to create that accent light. In the end, it looked something like this. And as you can see, the images are okay. If I would just post those images, you would go like, yeah, Frank, they're nice in the tulips. But it isn't something that really excites me. And for me, a photo that excites me is something that's different, that I don't see all the time. So when Claudia was actually changing her dress, I was looking around and going like, okay, we could do the same setup with the other dress because they're not bad pictures, they look great. But we also saw some other options, of course. And this is, if you're on a location, even if it's a smaller location, always look around. I sometimes call it the soap opera effect. You might think, when you look with your normal eyes, this looks like a normal set, but you have to remember that the camera cuts out. So when I now look at the set behind me, I go like, yeah, it's one set. However, when I look like this, I have all kinds of different sets. And that's also how you should look at an area, even if it's smaller, with your camera. How many options do I have? Only think about high angles, medium angles, or low angles. That already changes a lot. Now, long story short, we saw a bench in the middle of the field. So I thought, you know, this is great, actually an idea from Enoweek. Let's go to the bench, let's let Claudia sit on the bench, and now we can shoot from a slightly higher angle and have more of those tulips in the field. That's a great idea. Luckily, the dress fits perfectly with our backdrop. So, let the model sit down, shoot slightly down. I love the wind in her hair, it's really messy, and I just love those shots. Make the model laugh to get a more creative and commercial shot. I was totally happy with these images. But always remember, there's always more, right? So I thought like, why don't we just lower our model on the floor and just make her look up from the tulips? Now the tulips are straight lines. And that means if you shoot it in straight lines, you have this beautiful leading line going into the distance. Especially when you shoot it with a wide angle and you crop it nicely, it just looks like it's going on forever. But it also means that you have a lot of dirt in between, right? So you have tulips, dirt, tulips, and that's where the model is laying. Great. But if you angle it like this, you have one sea of tulips. You don't see the dirt, it's tulips, tulips everywhere. And in this garden, because all the tulips were different colors, they created a beautiful blend, almost like a potpourri of all these colors of tulips. Great look. So, our model on the floor, looking over the tulips and using a shallow depth of field, so HSS on our strobes. And that, wow, I just love these images. And then, of course, don't stop. Because I already told you, if you place her in the dirt in between, you have these leading lines. And I love David LaChapelle. And somehow I got a big David LaChapelle vibe from this shot. I don't know why, but I just got it. And when I shot this image, I was going like, okay, this is cool. From a high angle, letting our model sit down, absolutely love it. And then I remembered a few years ago, I took some great shots from tulips by just placing the camera on the floor, aiming it up and let the light hit the tulips from the back. Why not do that with the model? And use a wide angle. Now remember, the wide angle always distorts. So you can use it as an extra leading line from the foot from the model all the way to the model itself and then into the distance. And I think the shot with the leading line to the back from the high angle, this one, and the lower angles, I think those two were actually my favorite shots. And you know the funny part? They were all shot at the end of the session. And this is one of those things that is, I think, very important. If you go to a location, when I started out photography and I went to a location, the first thing I did, dive into the most beautiful area and start shooting. For the very simple reason, those images are in the back, right? Now go to the second location. Great, those images are in the back. And then go to the third location, and that one is okay. I found out over the years that's the wrong way to approach it. Because at first, you're still getting used to your model maybe, the model is still getting loose, you are getting loose, and you're still getting a little bit like, okay, what does the lighting do, how do I want it? Then with the second set, you get a little bit more confident, and with the third set, you're boosting and you're driving. My advice on location, start out with something that you know that you can do, but it's more simple, that's in the bag. Now you know it's safe, it's in the bag, we've done it. Now you go to your second favorite location, and you go like, okay, now we can be a little bit more creative, let's boost. And then you go to your favorite location, the third location. Now you're totally warmed up, your model is driving, everything goes right, and now you can create those killer shots. And then when you have some energy left, you can still pick another location, and you will find out that if you nailed those shots in that third session, so your favorite shot or your favorite position, you will find out that that fourth set will probably be even better than if you would have done that fourth set in a different order. So always start out with something simple, then your second favorite, and then finish with a blast, right? And then, well, you have the best images, I think. Lighting-wise, what are we using on location? On location, I love to use our HSS system. So HSS means that normally in the studio, when you use strobes, you're limited to 125th of a second. That's called the X-sync. Now we can talk about, you can shoot on 160th or 200, fine, but we're limited to our second shutter curtain. So in other words, 125th. As soon as we go outside and you want to shoot on 125th and you have bright sun, you will find out very quickly that you have two different results. You have a depth of field from here to Tokyo, and you will need a lot of power, like 1200 watts with a big maxi light, for example, with the Alengrom system or the 14-inch reflector with Hensel. And then you can just blow away the sun and create a beautiful, you can create a beautiful depth of field from front to the end, all sharp. But then sometimes you see those images and you go like, hey, but those are shallow depth. Ah, that's Photoshop. No, it's not. There's a technique, and it's actually very, very old. And if you once shot with, for example, speed lights, you already know it. It's called HSS. And that's high-speed sync. So what happens with high-speed sync is we don't shoot one strobe, but we actually fire the strobe in a sort of stroboscopic effect. And that means that although the shutter curtain closes, so the sensor isn't totally exposed for the whole exposure, because the strobe actually fires in succession, it fires every time that the sensor is open. So that means that you have a properly lit image. There are a few disadvantages of HSS. First of all, your strobe has to support it. Now, with most modern strobes like Geekoto, Godox, Alengrom, Profoto, the outside systems with batteries, they will mostly support HSS. The problem is if you're always used to shooting with the X-sync, so 125th, you're used to shooting on f11, f16, f22 outside. That doesn't work with HSS. Because HSS shoots very fast in succession, It also means that your battery runs down very fast. It also means your recycling is a lot slower. Your strobes will warm up a lot faster, but you also have a lot less power. And that's actually also the charm of HSS. So when you want to shoot something on HSS, my advice is to shoot it almost wide open. So shoot for 2.8, f4, maybe 5.6. But you will find out that when you go to f8, the strobe will probably not have enough power to just light the scene that you want. And also, let's be honest, it's also that charm of that f4 or 5.6 with that nice shallower, not very shallow, but shallower depth of field that really creates something cool. And we don't want a 100% day to night, right? We want to have something in the middle, and then HSS just works like a charm. Now, how do we get more light of our strobes? So what kind of strobes do I bring on location? Now, in our studios, we have the GT400s, we have the GT250s, and the GT200s. Now, your first opinion might be that, hey, the GT250s, they will give more power than the GT200s, right? And that's actually where you are wrong. When we look at the GT250 from Geekoto, it's a normal strobe designed for studio lighting, so it has a slightly different flash tube. When we look at the GT200, that's based on a speed light. So it's still a hybrid strobe, but it's based on a speed light. And it means that the glass in front is not a normal glass, but it's a Fresnel. And the nice thing about the Fresnel is the Fresnel already boosts your light output. So when you pick up your strobes and you look at your strobe and you see a Fresnel, those strobes will probably give you more light than something that's very similar in wattage but has a normal glass. Try it out in your own studio if you have two of those strobes. So on location, I love to bring the GT200s. Now when I place a normal softbox on a GT200 outside, I have to place my light pretty close to my model, and when there's a bright sun, I can still get away with it, but I need full power. Now in this case, because we're shooting tulips, I also want a little bit more distance between my light and the model. I'm not going to shoot portraits, I'm going to shoot full bodies, and I want a lot of space around my model. So that means that or I place my strobe somewhere where I can easily clone it out, or further away. But further away also means more power, more focusing capabilities. And that's where I love to use the Nanlite Fresnel. Now, a Fresnel, already told you, emits more light than you would expect. It's actually more than even a 14-inch reflector or the Maxi Light or Maxi Spot from Elingram. It's really boosting your light. The problem with Fresnels is they're normally very expensive. And this is where the Nanlite comes in. And I can highly recommend this for you guys. We're not selling the Nanlite ourselves, so I can really advise you this as a user. The Nanlite Fresnel is, I believe they retail for about 140 euros, and they have a Bowens mount. Now I'm not going to tell you they're the same quality as, for example, an Elingram Fresnel, but the Elingram Fresnel is still, I believe, 2,500 euros, and this one is 150 euros. The main difference is in the edges of the Fresnel. So it still has the same capabilities, it boosts the light. You still have that nice area from a Fresnel where you can just zoom it in and create a harsh, like almost spot on the face and then nice light around it. Or you can zoom it the other way around and almost create like, I always call it a hard softbox. So the Fresnel is a great light source. The only difference between a really expensive one and a more cheaper one is on the edges, and of course the light is a little bit less sophisticated. But let's be honest, when you're shooting outside or even in your studio, do you really see the difference between 2,500 euros and 150? If you see, well, get the more expensive one. Otherwise, just like me, use the one from Nanlite. The cool thing about the Nanlite is also it's very tiny. So it's still a large reflector, but it just, how do you call it? It just zooms in nicely to a package that you can bring it on location. And that helps out when you want to use it on location. The Elingram is a lot bigger and, well, more sturdy, of course. This one is more plasticky. It looks like I'm doing negative stuff about the Nanlite. It's not. It's great, great modifier. So when you're shooting a lot on location, make sure you check out the Nanlite Fresnel. I highly recommend it. Okay, so let's take a look at the behind the scenes video. You can see all the setups and, of course, all the tulips and our model Claudia. And a lot of the results today. Sorry for that, but I couldn't choose. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video about the tulips. It's maybe a little bit longer because I wanted to explain all the difference in the techniques, but also tell you a little bit more about HSS and of course the Nanlite Fresnel. And I can't stress you enough, the Nanlite Fresnel, or if you want another brand, but try to get at least one Fresnel in your outfit because it's just a beautiful light source in the studio, but outside it just gives you a boost in your light output, and sometimes that's really necessary. I hope you enjoyed this slightly longer episode of how did I shoot this one in the tulips, and do make sure if you go into the tulips, ask permission. It's private property, you're not allowed in there without permission. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. See you again next time. Bye. Hey guys, Frank here. Sorry, but I see that a lot of you guys like our videos, but you're not subscribed. So please subscribe to our channel, tell other people about our channel so we can grow, and of course hit the bell notification button so when we upload something new, you get a message so you don't miss anything. We upload about 2 videos each week, and of course every month we have our longer digital classroom live episode. So make sure to subscribe, and of course like and tell other people about our channel. See you again next time. Bye guys.